There is one truth I have learned from years of working with the elderly. A person begins to lose respect not in aging, but when they stop caring for their inner dignity. I am a doctor with over 30 years of experience, and I have seen many fates, sometimes very complex. Some people at 70 retain an amazing charm and inner light. Next to them, warmth always reigns. Others, unknowingly, gradually lose respect from their loved ones, becoming irritable, sensitive, and withdrawn. And the worst thing is that this happens not because of age or illness, but because of words. Yes, it's precisely because of words, because of themes that seem harmless, but each time a person returns to them, it's as if they take away a piece of their dignity. I often tell my patients, sometimes it is not what we do that destroys us, but what we talk about. Today I want to share 5 personal topics that are best kept to oneself. If you want to be treated with respect and listened to with interest rather than pity, please listen to the end, for at the very conclusion, I will reveal one seemingly simple, yet unexpected thought. It can change your perception of how to maintain inner dignity, even as age begins to show. Usually, I share this thought only with my closest patients. With age, a person becomes more candid. There is a desire to express oneself, to share the pain, to talk about what has hurt, who has let one down or not called. This is natural. However, there is a line between sincerity and what makes us vulnerable. Maturity is not only wisdom, but also the ability to hold back. When we stop filtering our words, it's as if we leave our soul unprotected. I often see how conversations about personal grievances, old disappointments, or those who did not appreciate us subtly make a person irritable. No one wants to stay long next to an irritated person, not even children or grandchildren. You have probably noticed how the atmosphere immediately changes when someone starts complaining. The air becomes heavier, and when a person who speaks calmly and kindly is nearby, time seems to flow more gently. So, these 5 themes that I will discuss further are like invisible cracks in glass. At first, they are almost invisible, but over time they grow, and at some point, the glass may shatter. Everything could have been prevented by simply learning to remain silent in time. In my experience, a person's dignity is not only their posture and appearance, it is also the silence within when there is no need to prove, justify, complain, or blame anyone. People respect those who can set boundaries, who do not expose their soul in search of sympathy, but carry it with dignity like a treasure. I beg you, do not ignore this topic. Many elderly people lose the respect of those around them, not because they have become weak, but because they become too talkative about things that should not be discussed. And believe me, this can be changed. Now I will tell you about what silently undermines respect for us from within. The first topic not to discuss in old age is the most insidious. It appears harmless, even pleasant, but it gradually distances us from others, makes us less interesting, and even devalues our accumulated experience. Believe me, this is truly important. At the end of the narrative, I will share the main secret that will help restore inner peace and respect, even if it seems you have already lost much. The first topic not to discuss in old age is the constant complaints about the past, where each day begins with phrases like, "It was better before, now everything is different. People have changed." On the outside, it may seem like mere nostalgia or a desire to share memories. However, often behind these words lies bitterness and resentment towards life, making a person burdensome to those around them. No one wants to hear again and again that everything is over, everything is lost, or that times have changed. People leave not because they are uninterested, but because they cannot stay long beside the sorrow hidden in the voice. I have observed this many times. Often people over 60 come to me looking sprightly and well-groomed, but in conversation, there's the same regret. If only I had acted differently then. If only it weren't for her. If only those years. And I always delicately say, you don't live in the past, you live with the past. These are completely different things. Remembering is one thing, but comparing yourself today to who you were at 20 is entirely different. The past should be like an old photo album. You can open it, smile, close it, and move on, not like a room you live in and cannot escape. When a person constantly returns to the past, it seems they lose connection with the present. The world moves forward, new habits, technologies, and views emerge, while they remain in the past, feeling unnecessary. But this is not the fault of age. It is a choice to cling to what has already passed. Maturity is not the end, but a chance to see life from a new perspective, where there is no need to rush or prove anything to anyone. It is a time to become a wise witness rather than a sad observer. In my experience, those who let go of the past start to change even externally. The face softens, the eyes brighten, the voice gains calmness. I remember a patient who was 72 years old. She often came for appointments and always started the conversation with the same phrase. Things were different before, and now no one needs anything. I listened to her, but one day I said, "Have you not noticed that when you talk about the past, you seem to put a cross on today?" She fell silent. The next week she came again, with a smile on her face, and said she decided to talk about now instead of then. And it radically changed her. She started attending a social club, signed up for yoga, and began to wear makeup again. Sometimes, changing just one word can change an entire life. The problem with conversations about the past is that they drain our energy to a place where we are no longer present. Life undoubtedly moves in one direction, forward. But when a person repeatedly says, "In my time," they seem to tell those around them, "I am no longer here." Surprisingly, the world begins to listen to them. People stop seeking advice, inviting them anywhere, or showing interest in their opinion, not because they don't appreciate, but because they understand. The person is already in their memories where they feel more comfortable than with them. Therefore, the first step to preserving one's dignity is to regain interest in the present. Let it be not for everything, but for the little things. The aroma of morning coffee, a walk in the yard, the smile of a neighbor, a new movie, even if it differs from the previous ones. As long as you find life interesting, people are drawn to you. But when the only interest remains in memories, they begin to drift away. With age comes wisdom, but along with it, the danger of getting stuck in one's stories. A person can repeat the same pain, the same injustice for years, unaware of how it makes them a prisoner of the past. True dignity lies in the ability to cherish memories with respect, but not allowing them to control your life. So the next time you feel like starting a sentence with, "It was better before," stop, smile, and say, "Today is also not bad." This is not self-deception, but a choice to live in the present rather than in the shadow of one's memories. And then you will notice that people will start to listen to you more attentively. For those who do not complain but radiate inner light are always more desirable to be around. Now I will move on to the second topic, even more delicate and dangerous. It can destroy relationships with loved ones, even when you have no malicious intentions. This topic seems like concern, but often it degenerates into pressure. And believe me, many do not even realize how, with the best intentions, they lose the respect of their loved ones by doing this. The second topic that should not be discussed in old age is the endless advice to loved ones, especially children and grandchildren. What could be more natural? The experience of lived years suggests that we have seen and know much. We strive to protect our loved ones from mistakes, to warn, to help. But sometimes beneath this care lies something deeper, a desire to control, to hold influence, to prove that nothing can succeed without us. And it is precisely this that silently destroys relationships. In my experience, at a mature age, people feel especially keenly that they are not being listened to. They want their opinions to matter, for their advice to be taken seriously. But the more insistently we try to convey our thoughts, the more the young shut themselves off. They think our intentions are not aimed at helping, but at lecturing. No one likes to be constantly corrected, even if it's done out of love. I often recall a story. An elderly man, an engineer, nearly 80 years old, came to see me. He was wise and kind, but with a strong character. He often complained, "The children do not listen to me. They do everything their own way. I see that they are making mistakes." One day I asked, "Do you want them to listen to you or to feel that you are there?" He pondered. After a few weeks, he returned and said, "I tried just listening to them, without giving advice. And for the first time in a long time, my son called me and asked for advice." He added, "I realized that sometimes silence is more powerful than words." It's an important lesson. Advice given without being asked is not help, but rather interference, even if it is correct and comes from good intentions. The young should find their own way, and the elders should give them space. The true dignity of a mature person lies not in teaching everyone, but in the ability to be present without creating pressure. I implore you, do not ignore this. Sometimes one thoughtless piece of advice can destroy trust built over years, especially if it is spoken with reproach or a tone of superiority. When an elderly person says, "I know how to do it right," it is perceived not as care, but as reproach. you are not managing. And then the young begin to drift away. But a simple human phrase sounds much stronger. Do you want me to tell you how it was for me? There is no pressure, no pride, only experience and warmth. Sometimes silence is a sign of respect. Respect for another's freedom, their right to make mistakes, their life. And you know, this returns respect to you because people start to see not someone who teaches, but someone who wisely observes without judgment. This is a rare gift, especially in our days. Try conducting one small experiment. For a week, whenever you feel like correcting someone or giving advice, just stop and ask yourself, did they ask me for this? If not, just smile and remain silent. Let the person seek help on their own. Sometimes you just need to wait, and you will be surprised at how quickly the atmosphere around you will change. People will begin to reach out, share, trust, for it is easy to breathe next to someone who does not impose their opinion. I understand how hard it is to hold back, especially when you see a loved one making a mistake. But believe me, respect is not when you are listened to out of politeness. True respect is when people come to you themselves because they feel that you will not judge them. Maturity is not measured by the number of years lived. It is the ability to understand when it is better to speak and when to remain silent. And when a person masters this art, they become truly strong, for strength lies not in words, but in presence. In the next recommendation, I will talk about another topic that may seem harmless, but just like constant advice, it destroys inner peace and respect. This theme concerns our grievances, our relationship with loved ones and ourselves. It pulls us down, ages the soul, and makes the heart heavy. However, if we recognize and change it, we can feel the lightness and confidence return. The third topic not to discuss in old age is the constant complaints about grievances, about who didn't call, didn't come, didn't thank, didn't pay attention. On the outside, such conversations seem simple, as everyone wants to be noticed, everyone needs participation. When complaints about grievances become habitual, a person begins to feed off this feeling, and with each instance, it becomes increasingly burdensome. Resentment accumulates, takes root, and gradually becomes part of their character. Based on my experience, I can say that resentment is not just an emotion, but a state of the soul that ages a person faster than time. It drains life forces, makes the voice sharp, the gaze anxious, and the body tense. I observed how some patients' blood pressure remained high for years until they let go of old pain. Conversely, as soon as a person learned to forgive, even chronic illnesses began to recede. This was not happening because of some miracle, but because the body finally stopped being in a constant state of defense. I had one patient, Maria Petrovna, who was 74 years old. At first glance, she seemed strong and well-groomed, but inside she carried a heavy heart. Every time at the appointment, she began with the phrase, "No one appreciates me. I tried for everyone, and now I'm needed by no one." I listened to her for a long time until one day I said, "Maria Petrovna, you are not talking about being unappreciated, but about continuing to wait for gratitude. But gratitude is not an obligation. It is a gift. It cannot be demanded. It must simply be accepted." She was silent for a long time, and then quietly confessed that she had never thought about it from that perspective. A month later, she came back changed, calm, gentle, with a smile. She said she decided not to wait, but to simply live and do good for herself. And, can you imagine, her daughter invited her over for the first time. The essence is this: when a person stops complaining about misunderstanding and simply remains kind, respect returns. People start to feel warmth instead of resentment. No one wants to be around someone who constantly reproaches. Even the most loving children start to avoid conversations when every call ends with the phrase, "You've completely forgotten about me." But it can be said differently. "I'm glad you are living your life. I just wanted to hear your voice." There is no resentment in this phrase, only love, and it returns. Scientists have long established that when a person frequently speaks of grievances, their brain forms lasting connections that amplify negative emotions. It's like a path in the woods. The more often you walk it, the deeper it becomes. But if you stop repeating old grievances, over time, that path becomes overgrown. In the soul, silence descends. From my experience, people who learn to forgive live longer and feel happier. Forgiveness is not justification or forgetfulness, but the liberation of oneself. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a heavy stone in the heart, hoping the other will feel it, but he does not feel. We are the only ones suffering. I understand that this is not easy. To forgive means to let go of control, to acknowledge that life goes on even if someone has acted unjustly. But this is where the strength of a mature person lies, not in victory, but in not allowing evil to take root inside. Try to take one small step. Remember the person you hold a grudge against and simply say in your mind, I no longer want to carry this inside me, not for him, but for myself. No need to call, no need to prove anything. Just let it go, and you will be surprised how much lighter you feel inside. Do you know what I noticed? People who can forgive look much younger. They have soft facial features, smooth movements, and a calm gaze. They possess an inner world that cannot be faked. This is true strength. But there is another topic that is rarely spoken about openly, and it is no less dangerous. It undermines respect for oneself and for others from within. It is self-pity. For one's life, for one's fate. She seems harmless, even human, but in reality, she can silently break a person if not noticed in time. I will tell you about this in the next part, and believe me, it can radically change your state of soul. The fourth topic that should not be discussed in old age is self-pity. At first glance, there is nothing terrible about it. Everyone has the right to fatigue, pain, and bitterness. But when self-pity becomes a constant companion, it begins to destroy the personality from within. At first, the man says, I'm no longer of that age. I am needed by no one. My health is not what it used to be. Then these thoughts turn into a mindset. He stops seeing joy in life, loses the ability to take pleasure in small things, and faith in the possibility of change. In my experience, self-pity is a quiet poison. It penetrates every cell, making the voice muffled, movements slow, and the gaze dim. I've encountered people who seem to live well on the outside, with children, grandchildren, and a roof over their heads. But their words were always filled with one phrase, I am a burden to everyone. This is terrible because a person seems to erase themselves from their own life. When someone constantly talks about their worthlessness, they lose respect not because they have become weak, but because they have stopped respecting themselves. Respect begins from within. If you do not feel your own worth, no one can convince you otherwise. Self-pity destroys self-esteem, making a person dependent on the opinions of others. They constantly need confirmation. You are important. You are needed. But this confirmation is never enough, as a voice inside says, I am poor, unhappy, forgotten, and no words can help. One woman named Lydia Sergeyevna comes to mind. She is 80 years old. She often called her daughter and started the conversation with the same phrase. Surely, you are busy again. You don't have time for the old woman. Naturally, the daughter called less and less. Eventually, Lydia Sergeyevna came to me in tears, expressing her hurt. She doesn't love me. I asked, do you love yourself? She was surprised. What does that have to do with me? We talked for a long time. A few months later, she said something that stayed in my memory forever. I decided to stop being an old woman in my eyes. I just live, put on lipstick, and walk. If they call, that's good. If not, I am still not alone. And, over time, the daughter started visiting more often, not out of obligation, but out of love, because it became easy again to be with her mother. Self-pity makes a person heavy for those around them. He always feels unappreciated, unheard, and unloved. But the truth is different. People are drawn not to those who evoke pity, but to those who shine even in difficult times, to those who can smile when the situation is tough.